Let's begin by looking at the deficit here in France. The government announced just moments ago it's revised its forecast, saying that by 2015, the deficit should hit 3% of GDP, as mandated by the European Union. The EU granted France a 2-year delay to hit the target. This comes as Prime Minister Manuel Valls is under pressure over plans to cut 50 billion euros. Today, he met with lawmakers from his Socialist Party who want the proposal amended. Delano de Souza has more.
The French Prime Minister is under pressure from within his own party. Certain socialist lawmakers want Manuel Valls to amend his plan for proposed spending cuts of 50 billion euros. They'd like to see a reduction in cutbacks to the poorest.
We support the structure of the economic plan on the whole, but we think that for purchasing power, and especially for the poorest or retirees, and those dependent on government support, we'd like to protect their spending power.
Manuel Valls faces a tough balancing act. France is under pressure from the European Union. It's already been granted a 2-year extension to bring the country's deficit to under 3% by 2015. On the other hand, he must also jumpstart the French economy, growing at a sluggish pace with an unemployment rate of around 11%. François Hollande's Responsibility Pact announced in January also risks being delayed. The French president had promised to cut payroll taxes by 30 billion euros in order to push job creation.
The Responsibility Pact that will come into effect in 2015, it's directed at big companies. Can it come into effect for smaller businesses in 2015 and for big companies in 2016?
Manuel Valls will present his deficit reduction program to Parliament on Wednesday. A vote is expected on the 29th of April.
Let's head to Russia now, where Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev warned that financial sanctions imposed on his country in response to the Ukrainian crisis could not go unpunished. He added that Russia must set up an international payment system that would rival Visa and MasterCard after those companies withdrew their services from several Russian banks. Medvedev also pledged support for Russian companies affected by the sanctions. And this Ukrainian tension has been weighing on the markets, but it hasn't dampened spirits in the U.S. Let's take a look at Wall Street now. The U.S. stocks finished up the S&P 500 with its first 6-day winning streak since September and its NASDAQ's first 6-day win streak since February. Investors still digesting a slew of earnings reports, trading bolstered by positive figures from Harley-Davidson and AT&T, both of whom beat estimates. Time now for a quick look at two of those companies that did report. The world's second biggest fast food chain missed expectations. McDonald's said profits dropped 5.2% for the first 3 months of the year. The company wants to strengthen its menu offerings and is focusing on stabilizing its key markets, including the U.S., Germany, Australia, and Japan. Comcast posted impressive first quarter results. Net income was up 30% for America's largest cable operator, thanks largely to ad revenue surging for TV channel NBC and an additional 24,000 video net subscribers. The company is still waiting for approval from U.S. regulators over its $45 billion bid in February to acquire the second largest U.S. cable operator, Time Warner. And Tesla Motors made its first delivery in China. The U.S. manufacturer handed over 8 all-electric sedans at a launch event in Beijing. The company plans to build a nationwide network of charging stations and service centers as soon as possible. It's a venture that could cost hundreds of millions of dollars. Move to Bolivia now, where there is some positive economic news, at least if you're on the minimum wage there. The government announced that minimum wage is to be raised by 20%. That means public and private sector workers will now get a minimum of 156 euros. President Evo Morales announced the move on Monday following talks with trade unions. The increase is well above inflation, which was 6.5% last year. Unions naturally praised the move, but it was criticized by the Employers Federation, who said they had been bypassed in the negotiations. Time now for one last story. The new most expensive restaurant in the world is opening in crisis-hit Spain. For 1,500 euros, diners at Sublimotion will get a 20-course gastro-sensory meal. And yes, look at the table. It is sensory indeed. Induced looks like a light show at a Pink Floyd concert to me. But Sublimotion will only sit 12 people at a time when it opens next month at Ibiza's Hard Rock Hotel. It's the latest project from Paco Roncero, one of Spain's most famous chefs. I don't think I have the money to head there anytime soon. What about you, Chris?
Maybe, Will. See how I feel. Thank you very much. Time to bring in James Creedon and
Good evening,
his
Chris.
laptop media
Yes.
watch. Wedding to Lyon.